Morning, Jacob. Thanks for joining us. Morning, Kate. Hey, Jessica. Thanks for joining us. Morning, Abby. Thank you for joining us today. Morning, Kate. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Abby. I'm not sure what's going on with Zoom. Let me just see if I can somehow open that up. Yeah, it looks like we're having a little bit of technical difficulties with the link today. That's fine. We'll make sure that anybody who can't join we'll get the video across to them straight afterwards as well. Right, Steve, you just about ready?
Born ready, Rich.
Always, mate, always.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Right. Final bit of the countdown, and then we'll get going. So today it's my absolute pleasure to once again introduce Steve from HubSpot. So for those of you who've heard Steve speak before, you know that he's got a lot of knowledge that he's more than happy to impart on us. It's one of the, Steve is one of the speakers. All the years I've known him, I still come away from these sessions learning something. And I think what we've got in store for you today around the evolution of CRM is definitely going to help paint a picture of how CRM can form a big part of your growth plans over the years to come. Steve, do you want to jump to the next one? So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Richard Wood. So I'm the managing director here at Six and Flow. And I've had the pleasure of working alongside Steve for more than 5 years now. Steve is a principal CAM, I think is the official title. So Steve helps us with all things sales and HubSpot related whenever we're working with prospects to help bring them HubSpot. He is definitely one of the most experienced HubSpotters within the ecosystem, and he is often lauded as kind of the preacher of inbound, as I like to call him. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk through some of the CRM options, but what we're going to start off with is a couple of polls just to get a gauge of where everybody's up to. So Steve, do you want to go to the next one? So in the polls, can you just describe which role describes you best? So just choose one of those answers and we'll kind of tot it up just so we know where we're sitting within the room. Okay, so primarily marketing, coupling in sales. Okay, makes sense. Okay, Steve, next one. Okay, so in the polls again, so I think of our CRM as, just pop an answer in there. So is it the magic wand for your commercial process? Is it the single source of truth? Do you find it a pain in the ass, or you don't have one? Yep, I was expecting at least one pain in the ass in there. Okay, and somebody doesn't have one. Okay, right. And then for the last one, how do you feel about your CRM? What's the relationship you have with your CRM? You work for your CRM? Yep, you get that.
This is such a good one. It sort of helps sort of set up a lot of the webinar of how CRMs historically and in present operate. You know, is the CRM working for me or am I working for the CRM? It's kind of a crux of a lot of the issues, I think.
Okay, fairly even split there. Right. Okay, it's good to get a gauge of that. I just like to start with what I wanted to go through is just a bit of a case study to give you guys a bit of a narrative around what we're talking about. So I wanted to start with a bit of context, paint a narrative, give you the effectiveness of having a solid and scalable CRM solution. So one of the best case studies there is HubSpot themselves. Some of you may have seen this before, but I think this helps paint the picture of how you can have a CRM be part of your scaling structure. So next slide, please. In 2014, so that was 1 year before Six Flow became a partner, HubSpot had an annual revenue of 115 million US dollars. They had 785 employees, less than 15,000 customers, and 3 offices. Only 21% of their revenue came from international, non-US markets. Fast forward that to 2019, revenues jumped to nearly 700 million US dollars. And I don't know if you've seen the recent earnings call, but that's higher still in 2020. That's absolutely flying at the moment. Their challenges are more diverse. They've got more heads in the business, more customers, and they're working in more markets. They have ecosystems all over the place. So we have a partner ecosystem of which we're part of, and then they have the customer base, and they have their employee base. And all of these things need supporting within a structure. So how do they do that? Effectively, they remove friction across the business. I think one of the themes that you're going to hear a lot from what Steve and I are going to talk about today is that removal of friction and how we can bring that stuff together, bring coherency into the model and how that's going to help. But HubSpot focused on reducing friction across the business. They brought all of their activity into a single platform. They moved away from Salesforce. They removed friction between sales and finance. So when finance were closing, historically, sales were closing deals and then sales operations or finance were then having to reconcile a lot of that information manually. They were spending up to 5 hours a month individually, making sure that deals reconciled with the accounts. They made it easy to align sales and marketing, and importantly, they enabled their existing customers to feed back into the marketing and sales growth. All of that dramatically accelerated the growth, driven in part by consolidating and refining their tech stack. You've probably heard about the shift away from thinking about your marketing and sales as a funnel and into this flywheel approach. And that's very much what we're talking about today, is how you can bring all of that under one tech stack and allow each of the parts to feed into each other.
Super. Thanks, Rich. As I said, guys, great to be here. Thanks for coming. So as Rich has been outlining, sales has changed. And I've been part of that journey from that case study. I joined HubSpot in 2013, so the year before Rich just mentioned. So I just want to share a little bit, I guess, of how sales has changed and how companies are having to learn to add the force and reduce the friction, to use the flywheel analogy. So at a HubSpot, what we're seeing is that today's most disruptive companies are winning on customer experience. and therefore the CRM's at the center of it all. The customer is having to be the center of it all, and you need your CRM there. So we preach customer experience as a core pillar of our strategy. I think every business does. Like, no business is going to say the customer's not at the center, but I guess, have you structured your business to put the customer at the center? And to sort of unpack this a bit more, the most successful companies we've seen lately that are winning on customer experience, they're the ones that are now sort of, it's not what you sell, it's how you sell it. That's why they're so good. And it was the B2C brands that led the way. If you think of like an Apple, obviously the classic case study and a lot of people use, but just the whole model of how we now just easy adoption, low bar of entry, get some value first. And then I go, cool, I want to now sign up for a year, or I want to sign up. The customer experience was so positive on the onboarding, and then when there's a problem, it's easily solved. So those companies that have figured that out, how do we get customers to onboard quickly, without friction, at their own pace, without too much money and effort on their side, but they just get to taste and enjoy it, and then they can do more with us. They're raising the bar of what it is to delight customers. And so B2B is catching up with B2C. And it is the CRM that enables you to do all that. If you get the customer at the middle of your business, then you're going to need the CRM. So it's not what you sell. It's not your products and service. It's how you sell. It's not what what you take from your customers. It's what you give to your customers to start with. So that's kind of the big message we're seeing. Customer experience now is the key to growth. And you have to have the CRM at the center. The challenge with this is that, as we call the legacy CRM, they haven't made your job easier. They haven't enabled you to put the customer at the center. They haven't enabled you to give a good customer experience, because you internally are not having a good experience, and you internally don't have the data that you need to make sure your customers are happy. And this is sort of what legacy CRM typically looks like. You have all the various components that you need. So CPQ, configure, price, and quote. You have some sales prospector kind of thing, some enablement tools. You have some automation. You have loads and loads of data. You have reporting. It's all there, but it's cobbled together. And typically it's cobbled together in one of two ways. First way is that you as a business decided to cobble it together. And you went, we're going to buy this point solution here, that point solution there. We're going to add this marketing, this sales tool, and you made the Franken system. Or you went, no, I'm going to go to one of these massive SaaS companies that has their model has been acquisition. So it's as if the big SaaS company that you're working with has gone, we're going to acquire 5 or 6 or 7 tools and cobble them together and then sell them as if they're one integrated platform. But they're not really. And that's what we're seeing. And so Franken systems, whether you build them or you buy them from a vendor that's acquired lots of companies and put them together, means you end up with loads and loads of friction yourself, which means you don't have the ability to give a great experience to your customers. So in aiming for infinite flexibility, most CRM systems became endlessly complicated. So that's in the kind of acquisition model. You go, this is a CRM company you work with, and they've acquired other businesses, or they've just made it super complex. And yeah, they can do it all, but it's too complicated. So this is a harrowing statistic. And we sell CRM, right? More than a third of CRM implementations projects eventually fail. A third. I remember my manager now, used to work for Salesforce for many, many years. And he remembers selling an enormous implementation into a company in London. I mean, one of the sort of biggest deals kind of thing, and they never got off the ground. And he remembers it was just crazy, all that hard work and all that, and the thing never got implemented. It was too complicated. It was too tricky. It was it just never happened. And that's kind of what many companies have seen. So why? Because the CRM was built for the budget holders, and they forgot about the day-to-day users. So more than 50% of sales leaders say their CRM is difficult to use, that the people don't want it. That was that question. Do you work for your CRM, or does your CRM work for you? Is your CRM a pain in the ass, or is your CRM an enabler? The person who's got the budget, the VP of sales or the CEO or the chief commercial officer or however different businesses are structured or the board, they're going, listen, we've done a massive spec of everything we could possibly need in a CRM, and we've found a tool, or we've cobbled together a tool, and it does it. And they're like, oh, well, aren't we great after our 6 months of our RFP, and we're all sorted? And the sales users are going, we're not even going to use that thing, or if we have to, it's going to be a pain. And so the number one CRM reason why CRM implementations fail is they're miserable to use and they go unadopted because they weren't positioned for the right person. They can technically do everything, but they're surprisingly incomplete without lots of extra work. In other words, yes, you can do it, but like, oh my word, like my daily life, I can't get on and do it. And so 47% of sales leaders don't believe their current CRM is powerful enough to help them grow over the next 3 years. So basically 50% of sales leaders are going, I'm not sure we've got the right setup system to do what we need to do. And there's always this list of add-ons. I wish my CRM could do that. I wish we could do this. It was supposed to do everything, but it couldn't. Let me bring this home with my story. We all love a personal story these days, and you just have to indulge me with my personal story. I'm married with 2 kids. No, I'm not talking about that story. But here's my story in sales. I've been in sales around 8 years. And as Rich says, maybe I've always been in sales. He calls me the preacher of inbound. But 8 years in sales. I had 1 year working for Oracle, great company. I had learned so much, and I was really, well looked after and cared for in Oracle. The irony was, no one really wanted to use Oracle CRM. We were, that was the CRM we had to use. And so everyone was this agony, and you'd have to use the CRM to make sure you could process your deal. But it was so awkward, it was complicated, it took so much training, and it was not intuitive, and no one wanted to use it. And no one really sold it because Salesforce was way, way better than us. And so I remember basically saying, look, you never really sell Oracle CRM, you just sell some of the edge products. So that was kind of the mantra, and that's fine. That's just sometimes the way businesses go. So for a year, I was like, oh, I wonder what this Salesforce thing is like. I really want to use it because A, everyone keeps talking about it, and B, like we keep losing to it, kind of story. So then I moved to HubSpot 7 years ago, just over now, and I remember they had Salesforce, and I was like, this is so nimble, this is so easy to use, this is so nice, like it makes sense, and on the whole, I can get my head around it and all the rest of it. And it was this great moment of sort of liberation. And I then worked in Salesforce for 3-4 years because HubSpot had started on Salesforce. We then built our own CRM. And what had happened as HubSpot scaled, and Rich told some of the story there, I joined HubSpot about 500 employees. So it was that kind of a size, and there was about 50 of us in the Dublin office, and whatever that sales team of 20-30 people. It kind of worked, but as HubSpot grew, Salesforce kind of kept getting in the way of what we wanted to do as a business, and it did become more complicated, and it did require a lot of customization to make it work. And what was happening was, this is a sort of a detailed bit of the story, but hopefully it helps you. My side of the business, the partner side of the business, we're not able to adopt our CRM for a whole year after all the direct sellers in HubSpot adopted the CRM, just for the way, your big rollout of a big project of moving from one CRM to the next. And so I remember all the other sales reps on the floor had been using HubSpot CRM for a year or 6 months, and we weren't able to use it. And it was like another kind of moment of like, we want that easy, that nimble, that nice to use thing that really it helps me with my job. And eventually I got in. So I guess I've seen from like an Oracle sort of being left in the past because it was too clunky and hard work, to a Salesforce, which was the next sort of disruptor, adopter, easier to use thing. But then that became hard. And then I had a similar experience with HubSpot, and I work in HubSpot every day now. So this is the key. When designing a CRM, who do you have in mind? And what HubSpot tried to do, and I was there when the CRM was being built and then I adopted it, was like, how does Steve Vaughan get to do his job better? Like, what will enable him? What data does he need? What tools does he need? That kind of thing. Will Steve want to use it? Will Steve be able to use it? Will it be like buying a new Mac? I've got a MacBook here. Will you just, you just turn it on, you hit the button, and it sort of starts to work, and it tells you do this, and and within 30 minutes you're good to go, kind of thing. Is it easy to adopt? Because if it's easy to adopt, then the data goes in. And that's when your CEOs and your sales leaders are happy, because they're going, everyone's using it, I can see what's happening. Whereas what typically happens is you have a CRM to process the deals, but people aren't using it, so you don't know what's going on, and therefore actually frustrates the sales leaders. So it helps me do my job. It helps me be more effective, more efficient. Gives me the data at my fingertips, gives me enablement tools. HubSpot has always been the easiest tool in the market, but what we've done this year, and this is kind of the second bit of the webinar, is we figured out how to make it scalable and how to make it powerful. So that's kind of where we're going. In 2020, you no longer have to choose between powerful and easy. Most people say, listen, I know complexity sucks. I know that this big clunky system we're using, it sucks, but I need that powerful CRM system to drive the business. I'm going to tolerate the trade-offs of all the reps complaining about it. Well, what we're trying to say is you no longer have to choose. We need CRMs that are both powerful to run the business and easy to use for the reps. So listen, thank you for indulging me. That's a bit of my story and a bit of the context of the journey of personally and of HubSpot, and I guess of the CRM, the evolution of the CRM itself and how that's gone. So it's time for Q&A. I'm going to hand back to Rich. And,
Steve, we've got a couple of good questions in here already. What's the best resource to review CRMs next to each other and know which is right for you?
Well, why don't you I'm happy to give my suggestion, but maybe given that I work for HubSpot, do you have a suggestion, Rich, yourself?
Yeah, so typically the way that we help people assess, and this comes with the caveat that we are obviously a HubSpot partner, but the way that we help people review CRMs is you have to look, like Steve was talking about, who's going to be using it at the end of it. So quite often you'll see CRM decisions made at like the finance level or the boardroom level, and it is driven by cost, or it's driven by historical use by individuals within that board level. But when we're helping people go through it, you need to be assessing this stuff based on the end user. So who are the people who are going to be using it on the day-to-day? And we'll come on to some of this stuff further down, but if you bring on a platform that just isn't going to be used, it's next to useless. And you need to make sure that you have something that is going to fit with the teams that it's being rolled out to. And that there's plenty of tools there, and there's varying levels of complexity that you're going to need for those different businesses. And that's typically how we would walk from somebody through that. Right. Anything from you, Steve?
Yeah, I think that's so in one sense, what Rich is saying is figure out the criteria on which you're going to evaluate. That's as key as anything. Because you could go, listen, I want to know all the requirements. And I'm not saying that's wrong. You've got to have that, but that's a powerful, and that's kind of my example of we did our RFP. We literally put our 150 things we need in the CRM and we got them all ticked, but no one's going to use it. So your criteria has got to be, yes, we need, these are non-negotiable must-haves. These are the nice-to-haves or whatever. But you've also got to have high up there, which is, it doesn't matter what we need or what's nice to have, it's how people are going to use it and all that. So get your criteria right. Now, to answer the question directly in a very sort of pragmatic way, there are, use Gartner, use G2 Crowd, you use independent people that have done comparisons. Six and Flow have done their own comparisons. Yes, they've got skin in the game as a HubSpot partner, but at least look at how Six and Flow are thinking about it and go, these are our criteria, and this is how we're comparing Salesforce with HubSpot or whoever. So get your criteria.
Just jumping in on that, Steve. So the number one criteria we normally encourage people to look at is ease of adoption, though. So not just initially onboarding people, but looking at the overall cost of, if it is complex and challenging to bring people into the system, how much is this going to cost you every time you bring on another team member, or as the systems develop, what are the ongoing costs of that? So that ease of adoption is probably the number one that we look at, and then probably looking at how it integrates with the rest of your tech stack, what it's going to replace in your tech stack, and how those systems come together. Next question. We have a long-standing sales team who mainly work offline and very siloed. What would your advice be to approach moving to a CRM and centralizing everything?
Well, firstly, thank the Lord for COVID. I say that with a smile on my face. But COVID forces old-fashioned sales reps to get a grip, right? I don't want to sound glib because I know it's a tough time for somebody, but there's a sense in which what we've seen is that COVID has forced outside, traditional-minded, immovable in their mindset sales reps and going, well, we have to be inside sales reps. We have to use video calls. We need to be able to log it. We need to be able to track a pipeline. We need to know where new leads come from. Suddenly that whole way of thinking about an inside sales approach and working more closely with marketing and everyone being able to see it and forecasting has become maybe, it's created an opportunity for change that needed to, it's forced an opportunity for change that needed to happen already. So you could, I don't know, I can't actually see the Q&A, unfortunately, because I don't know who asked the question, but you could use COVID as a kind of way of making that a non-personal issue in your business, is my point, right? We have to make this change because of the obvious circumstances in our world. So we're having to go down this route. Without this route, we're not going to sort of survive, or we're not going to keep growing, or whatever. So that's one thing. You use COVID as a way of helping you. Two, always find an early adopter. Hire a young kid. Find the most tech savvy person in your sales team. Find someone that likes new ideas or whatever it is, and say, listen, let's prove it with you. Let's just start with one salesperson, create some value, create some energy. Obviously, in sales, if some salesperson starts smashing their targets and overachieving and seeing success, everyone wants to know why. So it's that sort of, if you've ever heard the expression, think big, start small, go deep. I want to make a big change in my business. Think big. Okay, that's the big change. Start small. Here's my one person. Go deep. I'm going to smash it with this person. Once you get that figured out, it's easy. So think big, start small, go deep would be my suggestion. And then the third thing, obviously, is, is sort of obvious, but I'll say it. So, do you have the key stakeholders backing? Because what sometimes I see after working many years in helping people with CRMs is like, you might have a sales manager that wants it, or a sales rep that wants it, or even a sales director that wants it. But if you haven't got the backing of the ultimate person, the budget just doesn't come forwards, or the training, or the space in the diary, or whatever it is. So, there's also some internal education and persuasion that needs to happen. And that's why we would always recommend partners, right? When it comes to big CRM changes and adoptions, to do some workshops with your team, to do some presentations and show the value to the senior leadership, because often it is a mindset change. So they're just some initial thoughts. I hope that helps. Do come back with extra questions, whoever asked that one. And Rich, I don't know if you have any extra thoughts.
Steve, we've got another one that I think we get asked this with every implementation we do. How do we get sales reps to actually fill out the info? I, a marketer, find myself having to go back and fill out info out to make sure we're recording everything.
Well, that's where you just get physical, right? You get a big baseball bat, and you. Well, here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. Every email I ever send is logged automatically. Every phone call I make can be logged automatically, depending if I make it through the CRM, but it often is. I want to put the data into HubSpot because I want to be able to track my deals and what's going on, like for my sake, not for anyone else's sake. So it was such a good question, Abby, because it kind of, that's the point, right? If the sales reps are going, I want to use this, I need to use this helps me, this accelerates what I'm doing, this takes away pressure from my job, then the data goes in. If you're like, I know you don't want to use a CRM, but can you just do it for me? No one's going to do it for you. And so that's basically the breakdown that's happened. Now, I'm not saying, Abby, that's a nice solution, because you're like, well, we can't just adopt HubSpot, or I don't know your context, right? But your question betrays your sales reps are doing it for you. You've got to create a scenario where your sales reps want to do it. They're not doing it for you. Now, obviously, you could get creative with other incentives then, or whatever, or ways of thinking. But that's the key thing, really. That was my story at Oracle. No one wanted to use a CRM. No one used the CRM. And then right at the end, you had to process the deals, and marketing were like, well, we just can't track any of this, and we don't know what's going on. It was completely disconnected.
Steve, can I just jump in on that as well?
Please.
So
baseball
bat.
bat.
Says, got it. Baseball bat. So there's two, like for us, there's like two parts to that. So you can either have the CRM set up so that people, Steve actually got that. Great. So Steve,
This is Abby. I'll send this to you, Abby. We can take out your sales team one person at a time.
So there's two things that we would look at. So we would either set up the CRM so that as sales reps are progressing a deal, they're moving things towards fruition in the sales cycle. it is enforcing data needs to be entered. So like we have it in our own sales cycle. Every time we progress to the next stage, certain information has to be logged, or otherwise it can't be progressed. And likewise, in the onboarding phase, what we're doing is we're showing the salespeople, if you are using the CRM and you are adding this data in, it will accelerate this process for you, because then we can start to look at automation. It can start to autofill like emails. It can start to build that stuff in for you. It will also, when you start to do your handover to delivery or handover to finance or whatever that process looks like, a lot of that information will already exist, and it will remove that admin friction for you. When you close a deal and you go, okay, great, I've done the sales process. We've done all the rock and roll bit. Now I have to sit down and fill in the paperwork. If we can encourage them to do it through that process, it's only going to make their life easier. And that's part of that onboarding into a system, as we're showing them there's that kind of like greener pastures if they follow that process. Mark, great question. So, and I'll jump in on that. So for us, like I come from a marketing background, but obviously now I run an agency. So I'm involved in sales, marketing, and operations. From a marketer's perspective, having a CRM with that data in place allows you to be way more effective, and it allows you to then align with the sales process. And that like for me in 2020, 2021, like if you want to look at trends or whatever it is, that sales and marketing alignment is, sorry, Charlotte's just said, what's the question? So Mark's asked, because that's just come to the panelists, Mark. So Mark's asked, we've talked plenty about sales and for CRM, but can we explain the benefits to marketing? So the first one is segmentation. So if we have that data, we can start marketing to people in a much better way. So we can start to personalize, we can start to offer information and structures and things like that is all relevant to the people that we're marketing to. We can also start to align with that sales process. So like we can see where people are in your sales process, where they're on the funnel, and start sharing better marketing comms that are supporting that sale rather than stepping on the toes of it. Because I think we've probably all been in the scenario where we are speaking to a salesperson, we have direct communications with them, and marketing comes in and offers some sort of discounted deal or selling us in another product. And those kind of things can really hamper or slow down a sale, or worse, kill a sale, because the salesperson is trying to hit their targets and marketing have now offered them a discount, and it kind of shifts the game. So those are like, to start off with, those are some of the things that the CRM can do for marketing. And yeah, so that's kind of like the starting point, but I think we're going to cover some of that stuff as we go further into the process. But Steve has also put more into there as well. So ROI, closed loop reporting, visibility to what's working, what's not, quicker engagement with leads you generate, and a deep engagement. So speed of outreach and number of outreach can be agreed on and monitored, and kudos and pay rises. That's how it can benefit marketing.
In the end, right? If you're smashing your targets, that's what happens, because they go, listen, we value sales so much, marketing so much. And you get to say to the guys internally, it's not the sales that are driving the business only, it's marketing that are driving the business. And that's what number 4 is, a bit of that. It's like actually proving the worth of, like, Rich has been running a marketing agency for 5+ years. Like, that's basically been Rich's aim with Six and Flow. We want to we want to work with marketing teams and sales teams that everyone can see their value in the business, so the business grows. So it's a great question, because that's
so one of the questions I ask, like when we start working with customers, is like, what is the most important marketing metric you have? And it's kind of like, it's a leading question, because for me, the most important marketing metric you have is revenue. So how much revenue are you driving as a marketing team? And if you don't have that information, you're not going to have that information if you don't have a CRM that is linked with your marketing process. If you don't have that information, how can you ever make real decisions over it? Because clicks, likes, views, all that stuff doesn't actually mean anything unless it's driving revenue back into the business. And for me, that's the most important aspect of CRM when it comes to marketing. Right. Next slide, Steve. So Steve and I, mostly Steve, we've talked a lot about HubSpot. Now, HubSpot it's a big old beast, and it is kind of, they are like a shining light in that kind of hyper growth SaaS space. But obviously, we're not all HubSpot. So let's give a bit more context around like the non-HubSpot companies as well. So for a CRM to work for you, It needs to be powerful enough to support your business processes now and for the future growth that you've got planned. Hopefully you're all planning to grow, and you need to make sure that you're bringing on a tool that aligns with your future plans, not just fit for purpose now. Changing CRM isn't something you want to do that often. I mean, there is a lot of process and time that's spent into making a shift. So you need to choose a CRM that's going to support you as you progress forward. But there's also a downside to having all that power, and that's complexity. Next slide, Steve. Like Steve and I have talked about, one of the most important aspects in choosing a CRM is ease of use. So whichever system you use, it can't be too complex for the adoption piece. If it's too complex, it makes it harder to master. And if it's hard to master, adoption rates are going to be lower, and the time to onboard is going to be much higher, which ultimately decreases the usefulness and increases the cost of the CRM. So again, this is what we were talking about before. If it's going to be hard to use, people aren't going to want to use it. And then there's no point having this system in place in the first place. Next one, Steve. You also need to have something that's going to scale and support you within that growth. So you need something that's going to support your growth, and it needs to be 24/7. So something that's going to be easy to manage and always available, not just when you're on premise. I think that there's only a few CRMs kind of left in the space that are on premise and don't allow you to access them within the cloud. But it's so important, particularly if you look at where we are in the world now. I'm working from my house in Manchester. Steve is in Dublin. Half of my team are spread out across the UK. We need a system that is going to be accessible from wherever we are. And we need something that's going to support us as we're growing into that space. And finally, you need a holistic solution. So you need a platform that is going to bring together all of that customer data. It's going to give you that single point of truth, and it's going to become that central piece in your entire tech stack. Because if it's not, it's just going to become more noise in the daily processes of the people who are going to be using it. And if you have more noise, again, you're going to have less people using it, and you're not going to have a clear view on things like ROI. What we try and do as a business is get people to this. So we want to give you a coherent tech stack that covers everything within one space, like everything from your marketing, your sales, your service, and it gives you insight across each one of those. We refer to it, when we speak to customers about this, we refer to this as like the 40,000 view, or like the helicopter view of your business. Bringing everything together enables you to be able to see all of that stuff in one place. To give you an understanding of a client that we've worked with, so FanFinders is a business that we've worked with for a number of years now. But what we originally did is, so the FanFinders work with businesses to help promote into like the baby and parent market. So if you have a baby product, you would go to them and they will help you find the audience that you can promote that into. If you go to the next slide, please. So what we helped them do is we took them from disparate systems where they had no coherent reporting. So there was no link between any of these systems. They were using MailChimp, Hootsuite, WordPress, and Copper CRM. All of these things sat in different spaces. They had different data sets. They had issues with GDPR. What was registered where, and how do they remove people from different systems? And all of those systems, we brought it together, helped them create a sales process based around, help them create a CRM system based around their sales process and how it could work from them. And we help them automate, accelerate, and bring that into one coherent hub. So we've taken them from 4 or 5 different systems, there's another couple that were outside of that as well, and brought it into one platform. And now we've been able to help them onboard teams pretty rapidly because it's one system and we can fire them through that system. And it's, for them, they're the archetype business where we've helped accelerate their sales process and make it much, much easier for them to be bringing in new team members.
Super. Skipped on a little bit earlier there, but anyway, it's a nice segue. So in 2020, you no longer have to choose between powerful and easy to use. That's kind of our mantra. That was Rich's story there. It's like that business needed something, FanFinders needed something to run the business, but it had to be easy to use. That's our messaging the whole way through. We don't have to accept a trade-off. Do I have something that's easy to use, but I can't run my business on? Or do I have something that I run my business on, but no one wants to use? Let's pick the two. So historically, it's been, you either pick the powerful and that's the legacy, or you pick some kind of sales software that's more for easy to use, but you can't run your business, and we want to put it there, and we've developed the sales enterprise. And look, the last bit of this webinar, there's going to be more Q&A, which I think has been the most valuable part of this webinar, but I'm just going to give you a little bit on our sales enterprise as a kind of taster. If you want to switch off, don't leave, because we want you to ask questions or give us abuse at the end. That's fine. But sorry if it's a little bit, it comes across salesy. That's not my intention, just to give you a bit of an overview. This is how we think about it. We got the HubSpot product, the platform as one integrated platform. We haven't acquired anyone. We built it all ourselves. And then the ecosystem of partners like Six and Flow. So you've got your enterprise grade CRM features, things like the custom objects, the deep permission, the native ABM features. You then got your AI-powered sales acceleration, so different things that help you do your job, like a today view and advanced sequences. You've got your configure price quote tools that are all connected in. You don't have to go somewhere else for those, and they're flexible. The products are, and the proposals can be customized. And you have your streamlined sales reporting, lots of forecasting and analytics tools. So that's just a sort of overview of how we think about the tool and the product. If we go into a few of those things, so custom objects. Now, for those of you that know the CRM space, this is like a big deal. For those of you that don't, you need to know it's a big deal. Because it basically means you can organize your data according to what makes sense for you as a business, not just to customers, contacts, deals, all that's still there, and we want to organize our data around that. But you may be may have students, or you may have shipments, or you may have a software as a service subscriptions or things. Different things that you need to organize the data around other objects, custom objects, not just the standard objects of contacts and companies. And then you want to be able to set up workflows and run reports and all that kind of stuff. So that's been introduced. And this is a bit of a game changer for those of us going, look, HubSpot, when are you going to get powerful enough? We need this. Well, now we have it, and it's been well received and well used. Teams and permissioning has been in for a while now, but we just keep improving it. So you can have multiple divisions, multiple regions, multiple countries, and you can give different visibility. You can have different structures. You can have sort of Chinese walls that separate things out within the CRM. So really important that you make sure your managers and administrators and sales leaders and data leaders and all the rest have different access compared to the average person. It's very straightforward. Like it's a very common need, and now it's very straightforward to do. We also have account-based marketing and selling. And so Six and Flow are kind of amazingly successful at this themselves and in helping businesses do this. And so we've made sure that they've got the technology they need to make sure they've got a really good place to do their target accounts and all the rest. So at the moment, we have somewhere around 10,000 customers that have just turned on the ABM since we released it in the last 6 months. And there's more. There's sales automation, there's lead rotation, prospecting, and inbox integrate. There's other stuff going on, single sign-on, product library. What about sales acceleration? So the easy stuff, like how does it actually help your reps? This is the stuff that I value a lot. Well, we have AI-powered sales acceleration. So we talked about the ABM and the field level permissioning, but we've also introduced a lot of tools that help reps work faster. That's a great question. You know, Rich said, what's your top marketing metric? What's your top sales metric? Well, of course, revenue, but what's your second top sales metric? You could call it productivity per rep. That's like a big deal in HubSpot, productivity per rep. How do we get our reps more productive? So we have advanced sequences to help with that, which is a way of ensuring all kinds of clever things you can do to make sure your follow-up is timely and deep and personalized, but it takes some of the weight away from the salesperson. We have AI, some artificial intelligence to help populate your CRM with important data. So one of the newest AI improvements is a feature that automatically scans a prospect's email signature and automatically pulls relevant information like name, job title, company, and more into your CRM. So that feature has the potential to save your sales reps an hour to 2 hours a week. Now, a sales rep's most precious commodity is time. If you can save them 2 hours a week just on that simple thing, that's massive. And then you multiply that by a sales team of 10, 20, 100. I mean, the numbers become enormous, you know. And there's dozens more: predictive lead scoring, tracking, playbooks. I mean, I could talk to you about these and we can have Q&A. So what about the CPQ? The configure, price, quote. To hit quota, sales reps want to perform actions that help them work faster rather than working to manage their software. So to help sales reps close more deals, we've enhanced our CPQ features. So they're more customizable, and the product library is much more flexible. So what does that look like? Well, your proposals are tailored exactly how you want them. Now, this is in beta, so we're increasingly improving it. So beta basically means, it's there, but we're making sure it's stable for all customers. So this will be coming, out to everyone soon. But it's the ability to tailor those proposals so they look really nice. And you can either get into the design manager and create your customized on-brand proposals, or you can select some out of a box of templates. And over time, it's going to become more immersive and a visually rich experience for you to showcase your product and pricing. So super powerful tool. New accounting integrations. It's kind of similar. We want to make sure that once the deal's gone, that everything happens afterwards, that your quote turns into cash faster and more efficiently. So integrations with NetSuite, QuickBooks Online, Xero, Nubox, and others means your favorite accounting software can go directly into HubSpot to generate the invoices and tax codes and sync currencies. And that's not the idea of being a platform where, again, we're just taking away the friction. You can process the deal, your customer's happy, and you can get on with serving the customer rather than being bogged down with systems. What about reporting? Because the whole point is it's powerful, so it gives the leaders of the business what they need, and one of the things they need is reporting. So there's lots of new reporting, easy customizable forecasting built in. There's a lovely new Today view which shows you all the different reps and what they're forecasting and their best case and all the rest, and various different reports like that. Deep insight into how your pipeline is evolving. Is it, where are you on for? How does it map in a given month? So you can understand where you're going to end up. Your waterfall report, and lots of other things there, other dashboards and all the rest. Final thing I just want to mention, because it's been a requested feature and often fits within the CRM sort of spec, is that we now have marketing contacts. So you pay for what you need when you need it. So, all softwares like ours, you have a pricing per contact that you put into HubSpot, like an email address. But now we've priced, the whole pricing model's changed. So you only pay for the contacts you market to, that you send marketing emails to, or you target on ads. So that's wonderful. It says coming soon. It's actually with us. This deck was done since that happened. So that's been a huge success. It's very easy to organize them, all your contacts in one place, whether you do marketing or sales. You keep your contacts clean, and you have unlimited growth potential without paying ridiculous amounts for it. Okay, I wanted to rush through that because I know we're just short on time, and I wanted to have some Q&A to finish. So thanks for sort of staying with me with that speed. I think there's been some questions, so I'm going to hand over to Rich.
Yep. So we've got another good question from Abby. It'd be great to know easy things you can do to keep your CRM clean. I've been working on recently creating workflows that copy fields from deals to companies, etc., that are working well, so it avoids duping and reduces friction. Do you have any other top tips?
Yeah, I mean, HubSpot has a dedupe. There's some deduping stuff in there, particularly around emails and things like that. I can't see the question actually. It's quite a big question. Do I have any other top tips? The main thing, obviously, is you get your team using it, and then they should be able to go in there. So say, when I'm just thinking a top tip for me, when I go in there and I see there's a mess, I can quickly tidy it up. And I want to do that as a rep because I'm going to send a sequence to them and I want to get it organized. So again, a lot of that is if you can empower your team to do that, then obviously you've got all these workers who are doing it for you rather than anything else. That's just a top tip that comes to me, because I know from my daily work, I would often just be doing a little bit of cleaning, quickly tidy it up, and it helps me. I don't know if you have any other thoughts, Rich, on that one.
Yeah. So Abby, I'm just going to assume you're using HubSpot because you're talking about like companies and deals and things like that. But if you're not, other CRMs would probably be able to do it as well. But HubSpot allows us to as your sales reps are using the sales pipeline, you can have mandatory fields that are being put into that as process as well. So I would think about you as a marketer, what is the information that you need from the sales reps to understand how you're bringing that stuff through. So making sure that at each stage you've got like company names being added, like URLs, and you can see what stages they are in the pipeline, and then bring those into lists as well, because then you can build automations off of those, but you can also start to market in line with where they are in the sales process. It sounds like you're already doing workflows to bring to stop some of the manual adding between like companies, deals, and contacts, and that's great. I think that will relieve a big piece of the friction. But I'd also look at what you've got in terms of the mandatory deals, and I'm basing that kind of on your previous question as well. Steve, Mark has got a great question. How does CRM work in B2B model where we have minimal interaction with the reseller or end user as our distributors manage this unless there is an issue or it is a system that is out of the ordinary?
Yeah, it's a good question. And we're doing some more development on this because we know that there needs to be more, I guess, partner tools, you could call it, where then, it's a distributor or it's a reseller. So it's that is an area that we want to invest more in. I need to know a little bit more about how the sales model does work. You say minimal interaction, unless there's a problem. Yeah, classic. How does the flow of a lead work? It's hard for me to answer the question without knowing that, because there are ways around it. If you say, well, listen, this is how the leads go, or this is how it works. So I don't have a good answer to you, Mark, because I'd
Mark, would you be happy to us to bring you on to talk, and we can ask you the question? Just let me know in the chat before I throw you into the chat.
Yeah, he is. And Rich, just so you know, I can't see the Q&A tab, Rich, just so you...
That's fine, mate. I've got that covered.
Okay, great.
Mark, welcome to the party.
Yeah, it's great. I want some of the coffee that Steve's on. No, we work in a very competitive marketplace where our distribution partners will often have several brands. So we're only brought in, like I say, where it's a very difficult system to engineer, or if latterly there's an issue. So we try and get as much information as we can, but quite often we'll only find out about the order when we get the order.
Yeah. Firstly, the coffee I drink is from 3FE and based in Dublin, so do go ahead. I'm sure they do deliveries to the UK. It might then be like this is kind of a workaround, Mark, so I'm not giving you an answer. Yeah, well, ideally what you need is a way that they have to process that in the CRM somehow to even create the order, like we only know about it when we get the order. That's the key moment. So is there something that in HubSpot, for example, with the field level permissions, you could give them access to a certain thing that then they go in and have to trigger, right? Or you say, look, here's a landing page when you need an order, you have to fill in this. And when they fill that in, it goes into the CRM for you and you get the trigger. So let me give you an example in my world. It's different. And if I'm not quite hitting it, Mark, then forgive me. But we have a whole sort of startup program, okay, for those that are part of government incubators and everything. For someone to qualify for that incubator, they have to fill in this big form on HubSpot, and then that triggers it to me. And that's kind of and they have to fill in their incubator and what round of funding they are. And I won't hear about it until they're basically going, we want HubSpot, Steve. But they have to fill in a load of data. So I wonder if there's a way for you to say, if you want to get this deal processed, then you have to fill in this form, which can be a HubSpot form or whatever system you're using. Then it goes into the system rather than just being a kind of, I don't know how it works now. Do they pick up the phone? Do they email you? How does it work now?
So it varies at the moment. Sometimes we literally get the order. Sometimes we have the opposite side where we'll work to like you say, incubate a deal for a year or more.
Yeah.
So we kind of have both sides of it, to be honest.
Yeah. And so
and we also have like the piece, where we'll do we'll get someone to if they bring a deal to us first, we'll give them extra discount. So we have a whole mix, but it feels as a business we don't know as much as we should about the end user, which then for the marketeer like myself, this is the problem is how do we communicate with the actual end user if we don't know them? That's always been our problem.
Is there a way that you could get them to register an opportunity? So rather than a deal, is there a way that you could register an opportunity coming through the system? So,
yeah, we do that already. Yeah, so they can get like effectively protection on it. So they
okay.
Okay, two more thoughts to me, right? And again, this is not all matching because this is kind of quick on in the moment. Firstly, there could be some ABM strategy you might want to do, and like so that would be really helpful if you know who the end users are. But it's this person, this company, but we don't know who. You could start doing some ABM strategy to them. Maybe you're doing that. The second thing you could do is say, and this is just my HubSpot hat on, in the HubSpot deal stages. So say you say we incubate a customer for a year. You can have certain automation triggers that remind you haven't done anything on this account for a month, or as it moves from stage 1 to stage 2, certain notifications or actions are triggered. So you're baking into your system or your sales process a way of making sure that you don't sort of just drift off and forget about them or anything like that. But there is like, okay, I need to find out who that is. I need to follow up that person now. I need to check in with my reseller. I need to ask them for that information. So we have a feature called required fields. So if a sales rep wants to work on a deal, it pops up and says, no, you have to tell us this information. Thank you very much. So you in marketing can go, we need those fields. We need to know like who the person is or the LinkedIn contact or something. And then the salesperson has to put that in to work the deal. So that's a nice little mechanism that could help you. Mark, happy to take this after this webinar. You, me, and Rich could get some time if that was helpful and go.
Yeah, that was really useful. Thank you. It's nice to know it's not a unique problem as well.
No, good.
Awesome.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks both.
All right. So we've got another question.
I'm just seeing a question here from Peter. Do you use HubSpot in your private life if planning the wedding or building the house, as there may be many similarities with sales in your company? If yes, no. Personally, I use HubSpot in another part of what I do. It could call it private life, yeah. I help lead a church, so that's that. Yeah, we do lots of it on that. Hence why I'm known as the preacher of inbound. Rich, do you use HubSpot in your private life?
So I do have like a private, I basically attached to my Gmail account, I have a CRM, like a HubSpot CRM system that will kind of log certain things, because like we've got, I don't know, like different people that we use for different things, like the vets, the mechanics, like our house builders were in there, like all that kind of stuff. We've just compiled it into there because it was easy for me to set up and I was playing around with it. Do I use it on a daily basis? Probably not, but it's all being tracked and I could go and find it if I wanted to.
Yeah, there you go.
Last couple of questions, Steve. I've got one from Charlotte. We've spoken about sales and marketing and how it can make their lives easier and have more visibility on ROI, etc. What about for other areas of the business like ops and customer success?
Yeah. What we're seeing with ops is that they just care ultimately about data. So, spoiler alert, without me saying something I'm not allowed to say, that's where we're going. So, and that's kind of with that customer in the middle. We're going to create a whole thing here for you in the next 6-12 months, which will all be around that operations person or function in a business and give them the data they need, because data is becoming the big challenge now. They can still get a ton of data, but it's not sort of optimized for ops at the moment. So that's coming. The service hub, yeah, is a big piece. So I guess once you have a customer, you want to keep them happy. And say, going back to like Mark's question, and he didn't ask it, but just imagining the scenario that, I don't even know who they are. A deal comes in or an order comes in, I process it quickly. And then, is there a way to make sure that customer is happy? Is there a way to get that customer giving you a case study? Is there a way to get an NPS on that customer? All that kind of stuff. Yeah, we want to make sure that customer is well served. Do you have 24/7, chat so customers can get answers, or prospects, those kind of things? So yeah, that's the whole service hub, which is another side to
Steve, can I just jump in on the ops piece as well? So like as Steve, roadmap, there's stuff coming for that, but we use it heavily for our internal operations at the moment. So in a couple of areas. One is recruitment. So if we have somebody who fills in a form on our site, they will come through almost like an inbound lead, but they get categorized into a recruitment candidate. But that then creates a support ticket, and we have a support funnel that will then have different processes of different recruitment stages. And our ops team uses that to manage our recruitment. So that's the first thing that we have. When we close a sales deal, so when it goes to close one in our sales pipeline, it also creates in a different ticketing pipeline as like basically like a support request. It will go across to our ops team and say, here is like, we're getting the details for this invoice. We can then get the details. We put into the next stage that says we've obtained the details, and it gets passed over to ops. Ops knows to raise invoices and kind of start that billing process. So the system absolutely can support a lot of your operation stuff. And there's an awful lot of reporting in there as well from a finance perspective that can definitely help on that side of operations too. So there's definitely parts of the tool that can be used. Steve, we're pretty much out of time. Let's try and squeeze in this one. What does 2021 look like for sales and marketing at HubSpot?
More of the same in high level. I mean, you know, we just had our best ever quarter. So in terms of like, we don't want to rock the boat in terms. So we're going to carry on doing the same. But in terms of the CRM side, we're definitely going to be doubling down on that CPQ stuff. How do we make your proposals really good and all that kind of stuff? We're definitely going to look at this ops piece so that it's not for the salesperson, but it's for the ops that are organizing the sales, get the data they need. So that's going to be a key thing. That's kind of what it's going to look like for us of what I can share.
Perfect. All right. We're bang out of time. So we'll share this in an email. So we've got a guide around frictionless selling that we'll send out to everybody because you'll probably find it useful. There's some great stuff in there, particularly if you're looking at about how you're going to sell into 2021. Thanks for joining us. Steve, thank you for joining us. It was great as always. And we'll circulate this video afterwards so that if anybody wants to see it, you can or share it internally, by all means, go ahead. But thanks for joining us. And thanks again, Steve.